Hi, this is Brendan Davis from Bedrock Games and the Bedrock blog, and I'm going to answer some Q&A today. I am very short on time. I have to do this within 10 minutes because I got to go pick up my wife, but I wanted to do it before I got home or before I left because I know when I get home I'm going to be exhausted. Um, and I'm also I've been just doing a lot this week. I've been writing a review on Intimate Confessions of a Chinese Courtesan. I have a review of Tai Chi Zero up, and I have one of Thundering Sword coming up, and I have another review coming up. And I've been working on the prefecture guide for Wandering Heroes of Ogre, and I just ran my Thursday night game earlier this evening. So I'm going to get into it. I hope it doesn't sound too curt. I'm just kind of, trying to fit this in a 10-minute time period. But I wanted to answer the questions that people were posting. I may have missed some because I got a bunch on my Discord after the last one, and so I'm just going to try to answer. These are I think almost all Discord questions. I'm going to try to answer them all. And if people have any that I didn't get to, or if they have others they want me to answer, certainly feel free to shoot them to me. And so the first question is in Wandering Heroes of Orgate. Does succeeding on an offensive technique but being countered count as a failure for the purpose of extra imbalance effects? No. So all that matters is your roll, not the roll of the other person countering you. So you just go by your roll and treat the counter as like a separate thing. Um, you know, I know it can be a little bit complicated at times. This is even I was even having trouble tracking some NPCs tonight. So imbalance points are one of the parts of the game that if we could go back and revise it, I'd kind of like to sort of smooth that out a little bit so it's not as much record keeping. Um, but yeah, that one basically just don't worry about the other person's role. And so in Righteous Blood, Ruthless Blade, this is the next question. In Righteous Blood, Ruthless Blade, when you attack somebody, do you have to defeat their evade and their counter? So this is kind of similar. So it's a similar line of questioning. So yeah, you do. So you roll against the evade, and then if they have a counter, they can try to use it against your roll. Usually, some counters are TNs, though. If you're using TNs, do the Bowden clause. Frankly, that's not even quite enough. Again, if one area of the game that if I ever did it would have to be between me, Ryan, and Dan. But I think we all are kind of in agreement. I'd have to check with Dan because I haven't talked to him about this one in a long time. But I think if we went back and revised it, I think those counters that just hit TNs, we might either get rid of or really raise the TN up much higher. Because it definitely, again, the game isn't designed to be super balanced, but that's one that does throw things off a bit, in my opinion. And I think we underestimated by how much. But yeah, no, you roll against evade, and then if they can counter it, they roll against your roll usually. Oh, and somebody pointed this out. They said that they understood the system to mean that you can choose to evade or choose to counter. That is not correct. Evade is like a passive defense. It's a static number. It's always in play unless there's some reason it wouldn't be. So if your evade gets drained, which would indicate something that's like hindering your ability to evade attacks, or if just something happening in the game would make it make no sense for you to use evade. It's like you're sleeping. And counters, you can always roll a counter against an attack. There are ways you can kind of tweak the way counters are used in the game in order to get different effects. And so one is to limit the number of counters you could do, which definitely would change things, but you can do that. Or the other thing, which we haven't played around with all that much, only a few times, but it definitely creates a different vibe, is allowing people to always counter counters with counters. That gets very tricky. And also there are counters in the game that are specifically designed to do that, so if you do choose that option, it kind of undercuts those. But if you want more of the sort of rapid back and forth, that can work. It's just keep in mind you're going to be locked in constant counter maneuvers as a result. So in Strange Tales is the third question. In Strange Tales of Song Ling, are there open skills or are they all closed unless you use the expertise optional rule? Yeah, they're all closed. Strange Tales of Song. It's possible I'm forgetting one skill here or there, but they're all closed because We wanted it to be a lot simpler than Ogre Gate. So we pared down the skills, number one, and we kept them all closed. The thing that really avoids is, so in Ogre Gate it's fine because it's a granular game, and so you might have like a knowledge skill, but you only know about one area of knowledge and not another, and that can work great. But if you really just want to, like, not fuss over that kind of stuff, which, I think a Monster of the Week shorter campaign style like Song Ling approaches things as, the closed skill is sufficient. It's a rules light approach. And so the next question is, if a character takes an amount of wounds equal to their max wounds, do they roll on the death and maiming table, or only on the maiming table if they've taken over their max wounds? So when you take equal to your max wounds, you'll start dying, and that happens in a certain number of rounds. And the game is a little ambiguous about whether that means you roll on the death and dying table, because the way it's phrased, it sounds like, well, you only roll on it when they hit you beyond your max wounds. We and again, I know people sometimes don't like this, but we kept that intentionally ambiguous, and the reason why is because how you interpret that can really change the game. And so, but to be clear here, the way that I run the game is I always roll on the death and maiming table, in both of those instances. So if you take an amount of damage equal to your max wounds, and then you start the dying process and you die, I would then roll on the death and maiming table. It's really up to the GM. Is the one who ultimately gets to make the call. There are some areas of the book that we left ambiguous, and maybe we shouldn't have. We were really striving for, not in all cases. I'm just saying there might be a few cases where I think we could have probably added some clarity. But I was really striving for the vibe of the old. Obviously it's a totally different game, so this comparison might sound ludicrous, but I was striving for the vibe that I got with the old D&D White Box set, where things were so open to interpretation that it really freed you up to be more imaginative about everything. And so that's what I was going for. I was pushing hard for that. And so if you want to blame anybody for the ambiguity, it's probably more on me than on Jeremy, because Jeremy was usually pushing for more clarity. Though I think we were generally on the same page about a lot of these things. But again, if I went back and revised something, I might consider, I've talked to Jeremy obviously, and I don't know if we'd ever do a revised edition, but something that, because that would involve Osprey, but something that I think we would both consider is clarifying some of these things. But yeah, as the book is, as it came out, that's sort of those things are kind of open to interpretation. And again, I think the thing that'll happen if you lean on having dying result in death, I suppose one of the reasons why you might want to do that is you might want to have more dramatic moments, because a character who's dying can still communicate. They're just not able to really do much else. They can perform simple functions, and so that would be an opportunity for a character to give a big speech before they died or something. And that might be undercut if you roll on the death and maiming table and they have a miraculous recovery. But in general, I think that doesn't matter. I think rolling on the death and maiming table consistently produces a better result overall. And the death and maiming table is pretty unforgiving, so it's not like you're really giving characters a get out of jail free card with it. They're getting, there are some results on there where you can recover or whatever, but there's also a lot of things that'll just totally alter your character in ways you might not want. And there is also death on the table in there too. So, we both really wanted the Choi Yuen thing, and something that Choi Yuen, and again, I'm really running out of time, so this will be quick, but something Choi Yuen is known for is just these like really cruel martial worlds where maimings happen. And I can think of like again, Heroes Shed No Tears, where Graceful gets her leg, she cuts off her own leg to take herself out. She wants to subtract herself from a love triangle, so that's her approach. Or, and I'm going to spoil a movie here, so if you haven't seen it, maybe don't listen to what I have to say, but Intimate Confessions of a Chinese Courtesan, in a really shocking moment, Lady Chun, the villain, she has this technique where she impales people with her fingers and her hands, and she impales somebody, and you barely see that he cuts her arm off, and the way that it's filmed is just shocking. And then after that, she loses her other arm, and so, and this stuff happens routinely. Disfigured characters losing limbs. It isn't just Choi Yuen, but Choi Yuen, there's a bite to his martial worlds, and the way that I tend to think of it is he's depicting his martial worlds kind of reflect the world as it is, this sort of ugly, cruel world, but there's a gap between that and what ought to be, and that produces a lot of tension in the movies. I was commenting on this when I was doing the Intimate Confessions of a Chinese Courtesan review, and I think in when we were doing the Death and Maiming tables, we really wanted to capture that aspect of Gulong and Choi Yuen. And so, and again, and it's got this veneer of glamour and beauty to it. That's what's so intriguing about them. And so I think that's very well reflected in the game, where there's this this glamour to it, but then underneath it all, it's very deadly. It's filled with people who are like just morally ugly and often physically ugly. There's this dark underbelly to the Xianghu, and so again, that's what we're going for. I do have to go, so I'll head out because I'm over 10 minutes now. But until next time, I will talk to you later.